I'm originally from Zimbabwe. I was born and raised there and left when I was 18. My childhood was, you know, like any other childhood. But one of the things that stands out is that I was raised by storytellers. And I think that's where I got, you know, I think that's where I got some unofficial training in narrative and voice.
We Need New Names is a debut novel of Zimbabwean writer Noviolet Bulawayo.
We Need New Names was born out of Zimbabwe's lost decade events that happened starting around 2000 when the country began unraveling due to failure of leadership.
A coming-of-age story, We Need New Names tells of the life of a young girl named Darling.
Children are very easy to deal with. That is from a writer's point of view, because they have this innocence in terms of dealing with the world. So I wanted to capture that, also bearing in mind that they are the most vulnerable victims of any society, really, because of their age and where they fall on the social ladder. And that is why and how I came up with Darling and her group of friends, Bastard, Chipo, Stina, God knows, and Spo. It's a story about childhood, play, wanting, dreaming.
First as a 10-year-old in Zimbabwe, navigating a world of chaos and degradation with her friends, and later as a teenager in the Midwest United States, where a better future seems about to unfold when she goes to join an aunt working there.
Being away from home and having to process everything through the news, through phone calls home, through reading blogs and social media, for me it was a form of catharsis, it was a form of coping.
When she eventually travels abroad to live with her aunt, who is working in Detroit, Michigan, she discovers the many other struggles and stresses to be faced as an African immigrant to the US, including listening to misconceptions about one's land of birth, having to adapt to a new culture, and the fact that there are so many illegal immigrants in the States over whom the threat of deportation looms. This book has won many awards, including the prestigious PEN Award by the Hemingway Foundation.
Good morning and thank you for joining us on Books and Blogs today. My name is Catherine Mwangi. Today we discuss an African book, We Need New Names. We will get to know more about the book, but first I introduce my panel. Janet is no stranger to this show, communication consultant, book reviewer, she writes, she reviews. What else do you do, Janet?
I'm an enthusiast of African literature.
Ooh, so this book is right up your alley.
Most definitely.
There you go, and you've met the author.
And I've met the author, yes, in Nairobi.
We will get to know that experience. Then we also have James Murua, who's also not a stranger on this program. He owns and runs Africa's biggest, largest blog on African literature. Man, it's still the biggest.
Yeah, it still is.
Still.
Yeah, it still is.
Since we last spoke.
Yes.
Man, how do you maintain that?
I just have no life.
That's how you maintain it?
Yes.
And you're also a journalist, editor, so your background has been in writing.
Yes.
All your life, basically.
Yeah, so I describe myself as a blogger and journalist now.
Right.
Yeah, because I don't edit as much as I used to.
Yeah.
So I'm doing the writing side.
More.
Yes.
Tell us about the award you just got.
Well, I won the Sana Theatre Awards in December. And it's for the best writing in culture, theatre. And yeah, so it's an award. It's actually a very coveted award because it's one of the few awards where journalists are honored for their work covering an art.
Nice.
Yes.
In Kenya?
Yes, it's in Kenya. It's I got the award at the National Theatre.
Wow.
Yes.
Nice. Cool. And we have Miss Bilha Luseka, again, no stranger to this program. She is a TV producer at Standard Group, KTN, handling a couple of shows, including this one. And she recommended this book highly to be reviewed. So we are here because she said we needed to be here. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Why did you recommend this
I don't know
book?
why you keep doing
What do I keep doing?
You know, I'm a huge fan of African literature, and I think for me to be in a space where we can tell stories of Africa, I feel like if we are going to be discussing books, we have to discuss African books. So I'm always for, you know, African literature and creating a space for our own.
Yeah, we're with you. Yeah, well, here's your space. Here's your space. We have created space for We Need New Names. So James, could you set the tone for this book? What is this book? What's the plot?
It's a story, it's an immigration story of a young woman called Darling, who grows up in what we call slums. In other parts of the world, they call them informal settlements. She grows up in this informal settlement outside of Harare, and basically the first half of the book is her and her young friends, 11, going around the from the informal settlements and going to steal guavas from the rich people in the rich area, and the struggles that they go through, as Zimbabwe is also going through its own struggles, dealing with the madness of 2000 to 2008. So it shows the normal life of a young woman who's becoming an older, who's growing up, as the country around her is basically falling apart. And then the last half of the book is about when Darling finally, she used to think that she'll go to America to meet her aunt, and now the struggle she has when she now goes to America, and when she's in America, she's actually like more introverted because it's a new space, it's a new, there are new struggles, and that's basically that's basically the plot.
That's the plot.
Yeah.
Is it similar to the one for Chimamanda, the one you reviewed?
Americana. The concept is similar. Right. It's similar, but with Americana, the protagonist there are two main protagonists, and they go to the UK and the US as well, and they're not from the poor part of the they're really not from the poor part of the country that they live in. Yeah. Darling lives in the slums. Yeah. So they're really different books. Okay. Yes.
Also, I think the difference is that with We Need New Names, it's a coming of age story. It's about a young girl who's 10 years old, I think, when the book opens, and who is entering teenage as the book progresses. So it's a coming of age story. It's a story about seeking identity in a different way than Chimamanda's protagonist.
Okay, I see. You met the author, No Violet. Is that how to pronounce her name?
No Violet,
No
yes,
Violet.
Yes.
So her name is also like the names in the book. Okay, sorry. You didn't get the joke.
In terms of very unusual names.
Yeah, the unusual names.
Yes.
It's a Zimbabwe thing.
Yeah.
Oh, is it?
It is a Zimbabwe thing. They just have
God knows.
Yes, out of the ordinary names.
Yeah.
Both of them actually have met the author.
Oh, you both have met the author?
Yes, I have as well.
Oh, so let's start with your experience.
So if you look on my blog, there's a picture of the two of us, and it was at a festival that was held in Nairobi at the National Museum, and I didn't immediately know who she was, but when I realized who she was, then I just asked her a few questions about the novel, and I'm not sure I can quote her right here because my intention was not to quote her. Yeah. But she did tell me that she had an easier time of writing the first part of the novel rather than the second part of the novel, because while both parts of the novel are really about displacement, there's just a theme of displacement running throughout the novel, the childlike quality of that first section was a lot easier for her to write. It was a lot more light, and you can see that, you can feel that lightness when you read the novel. The second part was a little bit more difficult because it's about a young girl in her early teenage years, which is always difficult for any girl in any context anyway. But with the added feeling of displacement and not being able to find her space in this violently different environment.
And your impression of her?
No, I'm a huge fan. I met
you don't say.
I know I'm a fan. I mean, I met her a few years ago when I didn't meet her at that conference. I met her when she was here for the Etisalat Prize for African Literature. Okay. And we spent some time together. And then I met her in 2016 at the Ake Festival in Abeokuta, Nigeria. And that's where we actually spoke, and she's really cool. Yeah. And it's just for it's FYI. That name that she uses is actually a pen name.
Okay. This No Violet.
I didn't know that.
It's a pen name. Okay. And she does mention it, like her mother was called Violet. So No Violet is the child of Violet.
Yeah.
And
now he's making us like not feel so a certain type of way about the book.
Change my feeling.
yeah, and then of course her second name Bulawayo was actually to honor her hometown.
That's
Bulawayo.
a city in
Yeah,
Green,
it's the
right?
second biggest city of Zimbabwe.
So daughter of...
So what's her real name then?
I'm not at liberty to share.
Okay, yeah, because she hasn't shared anyway.
No,
It's a-
so
yeah.
it's
Yeah,
a
so I
pen
can
name.
respect that.
Yes.
So Bilha, seeing as you're here because of you, I'm sure you love this book. Tell us why.
I did not, surprisingly. I'm a huge fan of African literature. I am like the gospel of African literature. So I usually get into the book, like when I'm reading a book by an African author, I'm less of a critic about it. You know, I go in with an open mind and I go like, okay.
Rose-colored glasses.
Yes, because I feel like we never get that opportunity. So if we Africans are not reading our own books and giving our books a chance, then who will?
Who will?
So I did go with that kind of attitude in the book, and I think it's my lowest rated African book yet.
Is that so?
Yes.
Why?
I gave it 3 out of 5 stars, and that was even like a stretch for me. Because I was just like, come on, man, come on.
So let's start with what you didn't like.
Okay, okay. So I'm not for, when you're given the platform or the privilege, or you are given the privilege to write for this very beautiful continent, I do not think you should write it from the point of view of taking issues out of a box. So for me, I was just feeling like she had a set of issues: poverty, bad governance, mental health, the HIV/AIDS pandemic. Even if it's your, come on, you know, it just felt like she was just ticking issues off like a box. So I have to talk about mental health because, you know, it's in Africa and people need to know about mental health in Africa. But there's also the HIV/AIDS pandemic. But there's also children getting pregnant in the slums. And you see, it is my duty and responsibility to ensure the world knows about, you know, the many issues that we face. And I don't feel like she had to. You don't have to carry the burden of Africa in your back. We all know we have problems. And if we start talking about those problems, they'll never end, you know. But if you are inspired by the issues of Africa, pick one and let that be your narrative. So I was feeling like the characters weren't well fleshed out. There was the crazy uncle. What happened to him? There was the dad who got HIV.
Kim died.
There was the pregnant friend, the baby. Okay, that story was very saddening.
Chipo.
Yes, Chipo, who, and they tried to remove the pregnancy. Okay, that really got to me. But then what happened to them? So you brought us all the way, and you're bringing all these African characters to life, but you're not telling us, you're not fleshing out the characters, and you're not telling us what happened to them. Again, religion. So religion is an issue. Fine, wanaenda kwa mountain, wana dance, and they all do all those crazy things. But then, like, it was very disjointed, this book. Okay. And don't even get me started on the second part of the book. Okay,
don't start. I want James to respond to your dislike of those particular bullets.
No, actually, I'm happy for her to dislike it.
Yeah.
So the problem we're having with African literature right now is that it's like when you read a book, everybody must love it equally because, you know, it's an African book. It doesn't work that way. The point of books is you buy the book. If you love it, you really love it. You don't like it, it's, you know, you give it the stars you want. And I like the fact that, you know, we have that opportunity to have this discussion now. We couldn't do this 10 years ago, by the way. 10 years ago, we'd still be talking about some other people in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
Now, about the book itself, I have to tell you, like, I really love the book. The prose is so beautiful. If you actually look at it from the point where this person is giving you a story, it's a story somebody's telling you, you know. And when human beings are telling stories, sometimes people just vanish. This is reality of our lives. Like when we are sitting down, I mean, if you're going to tell me your life story of your family, there's somebody who will just come and vanish. It's not uncommon. So for me, the way she's telling the story reminds me a lot of the same way that I read Homegoing by Yajasi. There are people who you feel that, you know, they have not been fleshed out. The story isn't completely told. But the thing is, that's the way we live our lives. We don't live our lives where somebody will sit down and give you the full story of something. So because
If
remember
I'm
the
to compare, okay,
yeah.
let her interject.
I think the first part of the story was written from the perspective of a 10-year-old child. 10-year-old children are just not that introspective about the people around them. Secondly, that cast of characters were a foil. They're all foils to the main protagonist. And they're there to just kind of say something about her life at that particular point in time. So I think the perspective is one reason why the characters are shallow.
Yeah.
But they're not that shallow, actually, because the character of Bastard, everyone kind of is shedding a particular, it's a bit of a kaleidoscope, those characters, because they each shed a particular view on Zimbabwe at a particular point in time. So there's Bastard, who invents stories about a life he wishes he had somewhere else. He's clearly making it up, but he has this captive audience. And in the way of children, you know, he kind of is trying to impress them. And then there's Subo, there's Chipo, who doesn't speak, she's mute. And so how do you flesh out a mute character? But the fact of their being there is a snapshot of that country, that time, that country in that particular time. And so yeah, I would say that would explain the shallowness of the characters at that particular point in time. And I think that the characters in the next part of the book are better explored, I think.
So that's the thing I wanted to mention. Like, she's younger.
She's a child.
So you have to look at her as a child. I mean, we have a
well.
we have a book which came out a few years ago from a Kenyan author where he's looking at himself as a child, and the child is not a child. It's an adult trying to look at things like a child.
That's strange, isn't that just
it needs to be. It's a 10, 11-year-old going through this process, and you see the way that child is seeing it. And that's why I actually think she succeeded with Darling at that period in time.
But then again, I've read Homegoing by Yagasi. We also did Immigrant Cocktail, which is a story about somebody. So we had both sides of the coin, and I've read Americana. And for me, what I felt really stood out for both Immigrant Cocktail and Americana is, despite the fact that there were characters, because even in Americana there were characters, there were students there were characters in campus, but there was a string. There was always a string, so you always felt like you are going on a journey with the author. So even when the author is moving on from one part of her life to the next, you don't get attached to that part of her life or the characters, because she almost makes you pack the suitcase so that you move with her. I don't know how authors, I'm not a writer, but I don't know how authors are able to do that, but some authors are able to make you move. So there's always, because Yagasi is almost like a history, you're taken through various, it's a history book, it's almost like, but then this book, it's almost like we're jumping around, and then for me, it's too many issues. I've just thought about, again, those racism, like they're almost like, like 12, 15 issues.
I don't think there's a problem with having many issues in the book. It's normal for books to have many issues. I mean, I know, like, there's a...
Too many themes?
No, it's okay. I don't have a problem. I'm reading a story. It's a story I'm reading.
But don't you feel, and maybe we are, I don't know, I don't want to speak for you, but maybe you're speaking comparatively to the books you've just mentioned. So you're comparing, you're putting everything on a weighing scale, and you felt better reading those previous titles.
I read We Need New Names before I read any of the other books.
Actually, I'm not a huge fan of Americana, by the way, so I just have to put it this out there. I mean, it's a great book, but it's not one of the books I'll use as a reference from Chimamanda. If I'm going to be asked, I'm going to be saying half of a Yellow Sun we can discuss.
Not so much Chimamanda.
Not Americana.
Not so much Americana for me. Because,
James, when you say you have no problem with many issues, and I see where she's coming from. I actually those issues didn't even jump up until I finished the book. I'm like, what? You feel the weight. You actually feel the weight, because, like she's saying, we're here. I expected, again, my expectation, when the dad showed up, there would be a relationship. There was no relationship. The man died.
That's as common as, it's actually common. That's the thing.
Normal.
Yeah, that's
it's
the thing.
Normal.
It's normal.
He was not going to be trying
maybe what I'm trying to say is, I was looking for some beautiful, maybe something beautiful woven into all the sadness and all the issues.
Yeah, so
I
the
think
thing,
some background.
so the thing about this novel, which
Yes.
which a lot of us don't understand, is that you see the way we see that book, the way I saw it is that this is the way we actually live our lives. We are not trying to have so much beautiful prose, trying to weave in a certain way. She's giving the story of the way we live. And that's one of the things I love about it. And just for the record, it's not that it's just that she's giving stories. She's hilarious.
Oh yeah, okay.
She's hilarious. Like you're reading this book and you're like, this is...
Catherine is just like, where? Catherine is thinking of a place where the
so
book was.
funny. I mean, this
Oh
book,
yeah, I agree.
it's like...
The only person
does.
who's hilarious or evokes comedy is when she's describing her mom. Or, you know, that thing of your mom just needed to look at you a certain way for you to know. So anywhere the mom came in, oh my gosh,
No, but
that
humor,
was my LOL.
No, it was through all, the
There's
whole
humor.
book.
This
Humor,
caca
there's
place,
humor.
because of that caca place, just, you know, saying just this place, I'm like, oh my
No,
god.
because I wish I could, because I remember
humor.
it's
There's
very,
humor.
very funny book.
Is it?
It's
It's
really
not very,
funny.
very funny, but I laughed a bit.
No,
like
it's
in
funny.
some
She
places.
treats heavy topics with
Yeah.
a lightness and a humor.
No, okay, it didn't jump at me, like the way Trevor Noah's humor jumped at
No,
me.
not
Trevor
like
Noah
that
is a
at all.
comedian.
He's a comedian, yes.
But even
Not in that sense.
Not
Just
in
like
that
an
sense.
ironic, just like an irony.
So it's not like ha ha ha.
No,
like, no, it's
it's
no.
not like an ironic
I had
humor.
ha-ha-has when she's having a thing with her mom during that wedding.
Yeah, and
the
for
wedding,
Shirley, it's
I had
actually the
ha-ha-has
aunt.
as well.
It's actually the aunt. And
For
for Shirley, that's
Selena.
also
For
my
Selena.
favorite scene in the book.
Yeah, the wedding.
Yeah,
How
the
she
wedding.
puts that thing together like a
No,
terrorist.
it's-
I'm like, oh my gosh, now the book has started.
Yeah.
When
No,
it's
no,
over.
No, I mean, I really wish,
my favorite
I
part.
wish I could give you, like, because I remember when I was coming through, I read it a while back, so I had
Okay.
to look at it again.
Uh-huh.
And I was just going through the book, and I'm like, this is funny. This is
Okay.
funny.
Uh-huh.
I would love to whip out the book, and it's really a funny
So when you
book.
listen, it's funny.
No, I don't. When you
read
read
it again.
I have
Oh,
to
you
read
read it again,
Because
the
I read
second
it a few
time.
years ago. right?
Ironic humor, really.
It's really, really funny.
But for me, like my issue is pick a side. Because you see, you want us to treat these issues and themes with such weight. And you're carrying so much weight. And then again, you like want me to laugh. You know, for me, again, the disjointedness comes in.
No, but it's
because I
like
feel like she had
a-
so many voices. And I feel like I tried to tell her, it's almost like it's 3 different people writing this book.
Yeah.
It's almost like 3 different voices and because you just feel like there's a different tone here, there's a different tone here. So it's you feel like there's some disconnect.
She's
know.
growing. She's
But
a
then-
child in the beginning, she's a preteen.
I feel like we're giving her too many excuses.
But wait,
on
going
it.
by what
Too
Janet
many
said,
excuses.
this was written against the backdrop of what's happening in Zim at that time. So could it be, in telling the stories of all these characters around her, it was also the Zim story?
Correct.
Was
I
it?
think so.
It
It's
does.
it's a parallel
Yeah,
story.
it is.
Her struggles with her friends. In the giving
If
of
that's the case,
koalas
then it
and-
makes sense.
It's actually
So
supposed
lo
to
and
be that
behold,
way.
we have come to discover that here. You see, you
okay,
and I.
but you see, why should I struggle so hard to figure that stuff out? Why should you be the one to like? Because for me, I feel like a book should speak for itself.
Yeah.
It should be laid out clearly.
So
No,
you're
you
saying
see-
the book needed a
but no, you
forward.
see-
Not a forward,
Now you
but
see
it's not
the
like
level
it
of
almost
understanding.
like
I've admitted I didn't get it. That's why you should also do so.
No, I mean, like, I want to say, the thing for me is I'm learning, and this is the thing I'm learning with reading books, is sometimes we give too much pressure to a specific book to do too many things. Because it's a book about a young woman who
experience.
was growing up in a slum in Zimbabwe.
Right.
And then she was, she'd go through these things, and she's observing all the things she was seeing. And as she's seeing, she wasn't like giving you like a one issue, because we are not one issue human beings. No one is a one issue person. I
we
mean,
also don't have 13.
no,
We kind of do.
there is no
The
one
life
issue
we live
person.
in is just that complicated.
There is no
Let
one
it
issue
go.
person.
Should we sing for you to let it go? But I like
No,
what
I mean,
you
so-
are our
said.
lives so organized?
Yeah,
like,
the-
in your life, do you only deal with only
so many
HIV and
issues
nothing
you're
else?
dealing with
as a
That's-
human being.
Life is not linear.
Yeah.
Then you're dealing with a society that's actually collapsing before your eyes.
Right.
You're dealing with a person who's trying to come to terms, because their childhood is collapsing as well. Because remember, it's a child, and their childhood is vanishing. So you have a parallel where the childhood is collapsing, the country is collapsing, and then there's no one issue human being. They don't exist.
Okay.
So she actually did a pretty good job if you consider that it's her first book.
Oh, it's her first?
Yes, it's a debut novel. It's a debut novel.
Still that changed my mind.
No, I'm not trying to change your mind. I'm trying to say, if you consider that it's a debut novel of somebody who's dealing with so many issues, and then they wrap it up in such a very simple way, I actually applaud her. I mean, I wish I could do that.
Yeah?
I wish I could.
So it's like a skill, it's an art.
It's writing novels. It's not easy.
Yeah?
That's why there are people who have one novel and then they sit for 10 years because it takes so much out of you.
It takes so much of it, yeah.